What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for March 2nd, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Sunday edition of the podcast. A very cold Sunday after the spring tease we had yesterday morning. But let's do some quick housekeeping notes. First, be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. Just a reminder, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame ballot is officially out. You can have a chance to win 2 VIP tickets to the ceremony in November. All you have to do is follow the link in the description, fill out your ballot, and if it most closely matches the actual induction class, you will win those 2 free VIP tickets to live casino in November. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Be sure to check out my friends at onpattison.com. Great Philly sports coverage. You can get their newsletter delivered right to your inbox. They feature us in there a couple times a week. Great stuff happening over at onpattison.com. All right, let's start with the Flyers. Good win for them over the Winnipeg Jets yesterday. 2-1 in a shootout. It is their 5th straight game with a point. Mishkov with the game winner in the shootout. Ivan Fedotov started for the first time in a while in goal, had 29 saves. I don't know, 4 points out of the wild card, and they're off now till Tuesday, so they get to see some of those teams play between now and then. But we have some Flyers hockey to watch, and it's going to be fun. This team is still probably a year or two away from making some noise, but it's fun to see these young guys grow. And last week, I think it was, I mentioned the trade deadline. The trade deadline has not passed yet for the NHL, so I was correct in that. It's in a week or so. But good win for the Flyers, 2-1 over the Jets out in Winnipeg. Got the point. They're only 4 points back now for that final spot. I believe they're trailing Detroit, but there's a couple other teams for them to jump over. But it's going to be fun. We got something to watch. And then our other winner team, the enigma that is the Philadelphia 76ers. No Jimmy Butler for the Warriors last night, and I've never been more disappointed in a win. 126-119. They snapped the 9-game losing streak. Quentin Grimes had 44. Paul George with 17. He's averaging now 21 points a game since he's given up his podcast. And I respectfully, Paul, say, please go back to the podcast so we can get a good draft pick. Sixers are now 3 games back of the 10th spot for the play-in and a half game back of that 6th seed. And that 6th draft pick. And that 6th draft pick is huge considering that their pick is top 6 protected this year. I don't know. They're going to screw around. And that does lead into yesterday's question of the day. Let's recap it. I asked you, where do the Sixers go from here? Lots of thoughts, lots of ideas. 40% of you said blow it up. 30% said they need a new GM. Personally, I think if they're going to blow it up, I'd rather see a new GM come in because I don't trust it. Lots of good ideas, though. A lot of people said tank. A few people said sell the team, which I don't think is going to happen at this point, at least until the new arena opens up. A couple people said start the process 2.0. Specifically when they said blow it up. And the winner of the day, especially considering the way this game played out, they're going to end up winning just enough to get the 11 seed, but not get the top 6 pick. So they're going to end up finishing probably right where they are, and I could not agree more. And then they come out with that effort yesterday. Tickets are still going for $2, which sounds good on the surface. Even with the fees, you can go take a family of 4 to the Sixers for under $20. But they're not discounting parking or concessions either. So you got that. But Sixers with the win over the Warriors. They are back in action tomorrow against Portland, another team that's not very good, who's actually playing today. They're going to screw around and mess this up. And I don't know. The one thing I did see, though, is there might be some relief on the way depending on how things go. They could apply, if Joe's not ready to play for next season or can't play next season, they are able to get a medical retirement, which essentially he would still get paid, but it would take his money off of the salary cap, which would free up some space for them. But again, I don't trust this regime to make those decisions. But here we are. They're going to screw this up. I can already see it. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. We'll have another one here later in the show. Your Philadelphia Union, another good win yesterday. They're now 2-0 on the season, 4-1 over Cincinnati yesterday. Tai Baribo had a hat trick. And I don't know. They're playing well right now. I know it's early. I know the season just started, but the low expectations, and all of a sudden they're sitting atop the MLS Eastern Conference at 2-0 after two very good wins, scoring a lot of goals. So we'll see what happens with that, but good win by the Union yesterday. They're off until Saturday now. I don't know if the Phillies game was on TV yesterday. Hopefully it was not. They only got managed one hit yesterday, and that was by Johan Rojas. Now, I'll preface that with none of the regulars really played in this game. But Aaron Nola did pitch 2 scoreless innings, which is good. And I guess the positive of it, even though the Phillies only got one hit, they only gave up 1 run, so there's that. It's spring training, though. I'm sure they're probably on TV today. Looking forward to going down there next week. But there's our Phillies coverage for the day. Got some Eagles, though, today. Not really Eagles, but Eagles related. The Washington Commanders traded for Deebo Samuel. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. If this was 3 years ago, it might raise concerns for me. Certainly not a bad pickup for Washington, but I question Deebo's health. It definitely is. It's been a question for him the past couple of years. And then he has to deal with the fact that he was wearing an Eagles jersey during the Super Bowl. Not sure how the Washington fans are going to react to that. But, I mean, I think it's a good pickup for them. It's certainly an upgrade. Doesn't necessarily move the needle for me. Like, oh, my goodness, they're legitimately going to be contenders. But they have a ton of money. They're in the conversation for Myles Garrett, so it's still early for them. But Deebo Samuel, like I said, it's a good pickup. Like, it's not something that, like I said, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they got Deebo Samuel. It's one of those things. Let's see how it goes. And truthfully, with our secondary, I'm not as concerned. But it's Eagles news nonetheless. And then here on a Sunday, I wanted to kind of discuss this slightly because I heard it on the radio the other day, a couple different shows, and it's an interesting take, and it revolves around Jalen Hurts and where he ranks among the Eagles' all-time great quarterbacks. And depending on who you talk to, I think, to me, the list prior to this season was Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham, and then you kind of have the debate. Could it be Jalen Hurts? Could it be Ron Jaworski? You could throw Michael Vick in there. A lot of people put Nick Foles up in the top 3. A lot of people put Nick Foles into the top quarterback. I can't do that because, to me, you have to look at the whole body of work. He had the Super Bowl run, the 27-2, but for the most part, he was just an average quarterback for the Eagles. But now that he has a Super Bowl MVP, now that he has the Super Bowl championship, where does Jalen Hurts rank? And I think you have to make, and to me, right now, it's McNabb number 1. As much as I love Randall, I cannot put Randall over Donovan. But it's an interesting conversation. Has Jalen Hurts taken over Donovan McNabb as the greatest quarterback in Eagles history? You can make a very, very strong case for that. I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I need to see a couple more seasons out of Jalen. And that's not taking anything away from Jalen. That's more giving credit to Donovan. But that is today's question of the day. Where does Jalen Hurts rank as the Eagles' all-time quarterback? Is he, or I should say, has he overtaken Donovan as the greatest Eagle quarterback of all time? I don't think he's quite there yet. And with that, I forget which show it was, they had a great kind of conversation where do you take, like, if you put Donovan on this team, does he win the Super Bowl? And I don't know if he does. And I heard a lot of callers call in, and it was the first thing that popped into my mind as well. Donovan's ego would be too big. I don't know if he would be able to get along with A.J. Brown. I don't know if he would be able to deal with the fact that they wanted to run the ball with Saquon. And I think you need to take that into consideration. I would actually make the same argument for Randall. Everybody says, oh, Randall didn't have weapons. Randall didn't have this. He didn't have coaching. Maybe it's a whole different outcome with Randall if he was on this team with this coaching. I do think if Randall played in today's NFL, he would be the all-time great. I really do. I think he had the talent and everything, just didn't get the coaching. But I don't know if his ego would mesh with A.J. Brown too. So it's an interesting conversation. So let me know your thoughts on that, as well as has Jalen overtaken Donovan as the top quarterback in Eagles history? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related. Want to talk Flyers, Union, want to bitch about the Sixers? It's all fair game. Be sure to check out my friends over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things going on with their sports fan network. Go to clashingconferences.com for more information about what they have going on over there. And then the podcasts are available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then it's a cold day, but we're thinking spring. So go to Philly Goat, get your springtime Philly gear, get some shirts, the slides. I was hoping they would come in time for Florida. I did not order them in enough time, though, but looking forward to getting them. It's canvas loafer season. They got you covered. So go to Philly Goat, check out what they have to offer, and then be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com, Jim Montgomery, all one word, to take 10% off of your order. All right, today we're going to go back to 1962. And on this day in 1962, the Philadelphia Warriors beat the New York Knicks 169-147 out in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And the 4,124 fans in attendance saw perhaps the greatest performance in NBA history. Yes, today is the anniversary of Wilt Chamberlain's infamous, or famous, however you want to call it, 100-point game. He scored 100 points on 36 for 63 shooting, went 28 for 32 from the free throw line, which, if you know anything about Wilt Chamberlain, was notoriously a horrible foul shooter, but went 28 for 32. Also added 25 rebounds just because he could. There is no video footage of this. We are relying on Harvey Pollack, who was the statistician for both the Warriors and then the Sixers. So if he says it happens, it happened. But he's the guy that was responsible for writing the 100 on the piece of paper that everybody has that famous picture, which, by the way, go to Philly Goat. They have a shirt. They also have a 10,000 shirt. If you know, you know. But he took that picture. In that game, Wilt set 7 other NBA records, that including for most field goals in a game, most attempts in a game, most field goals in a half, most free throws made in a game, most field goal attempts in a half and a quarter, and most points in a half. So just a dominant day. Now, everybody knows the story of the 100 points and how the closest anybody's come was Kobe Bryant with 81 back in 2006. But here's part of the story you might not know. It was late in the regular season. The Warriors were already basically resigned to the fact they were going to be the number 2 team in the Eastern Division that year. No one was excited to play, including the Knicks. Nobody liked playing in Hershey because there was nothing to do. Wilt was out in New York City the night before this game partying, allegedly with a female friend, and he didn't stop till about 6 in the morning, caught a train from New York with no sleep, still hungover from the night before, and rode the train into Philly, missed the team bus from Philly to Hershey because he decided to grab breakfast with some friends like we all do after we've been out all night. Still managed to get to the game, though, and dominate. But Wilt was hungover, going on no sleep the night before he scored the 100 points. I'm sure he slept on the train. I'm sure he slept on however he got to Hershey. But just makes the myth and the legend of Wilt Chamberlain even better that he was hungover and going on no sleep. And again, the closest anybody has come to that 100 points was Kobe Bryant in 2006. But on this day in 1962, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points against the Knicks in a game in Hershey, Pennsylvania. No video footage. It just goes to show at that point, too, how the NBA just was not as big as college basketball was at the time. It was still the early days of the NBA. So there's zero video footage. There's a couple still photos, but you have Harvey Pollack, who was the great statistician for the Warriors and the Sixers, was able to confirm it. But Wilt Chamberlain, hungover, no sleep, scored 100 points. And again, we've talked about this on this show before. I think when it comes to certain guys, Babe Ruth, Wilt Chamberlain, you kind of put them on a whole different level. And the fact that he did this with no sleep, hungover, just kind of solidifies his legend status, where he's not even in the GOAT conversation. He's in a legend status. But that happened on this day in 1962. And then finally today, in honor of Women's History Month, as well as getting geared up for March Madness, we're going to continue our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. Today, we're spotlighting Kathy Bess from LaSalle. She was a dominant rebounder from 1978 to 1982. She is LaSalle's all-time leading rebounder, also holds their record for single-season rebounds. She had a career high against the Immaculata Mighty Macs of 22, which is still a LaSalle record. And she was a two-time all Big Five during her time at LaSalle. And she is one of two LaSalle Explorer ladies who, with 1,000 points and 1,000 rebounds, she was inducted into the Big Five Hall of Fame in 1991. But Kathy Bess, one of the greatest to ever do it at LaSalle, one of the greatest to ever do it in the Big Five, is today's Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. She is a rebounding machine, holds many school records for rebounds. But Kathy Bess, today, from Women's History Month to gear up for March Madness, we salute you. On this day in 1962, Wilt Chamberlain had his famous 100-point game in Hershey, Pennsylvania. What you might not have known is that he was hungover and going on no sleep. We'll have more on the Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies tomorrow. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on Donovan versus Jalen. And are you one of those people out there that put Nick Foles as the greatest quarterback in Eagles history? And if you are one of them, has Jalen taken over him? Basically, the question is Jalen Hurts the greatest quarterback in Eagles history? You can certainly make a compelling case, and I think there's no doubt in my mind if the trajectory continues the way it is, he will certainly be there. But that is all we have for today. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 2nd, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Sunday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.